So I caught this recent interview with Brian Eno, who is one of the most accomplished and influential people in popular and crossover music, for sure. And he seems to be a lovely person. But he shared an artistic perspective that I take serious issue with, and it's a view that I believe opens the door to artistic and philosophical traps that can be very hard to see and even harder to break free from. So I invite you to watch the interview in its entirety. I'll leave the link in the description below. But this here is the moment that first sparked my reaction.
I think the misconceptions people have about artists is that artists walk around with sort of unrealized things in their head. And the process of being an artist is making those become real. But I don't really know any artists who work that way.
He doesn't know artists who conceive of art all in their heads. Well, I certainly do, and I'm one of them. And history is literally filled with artists who work like that. There's no question that artistic creation is an evolving process. Very few humans create an entire artistic structure in their heads and just deliver it to the world as they conceived it. The real experience is something more of a mix. It's a mix of intention and discovery, and all of that is fueled by their competence, their literacy, and their own artistic experience. From there, Brian Eno attempts to dispel the myth that generative music is somehow automatic, and it's a defensive position he's taking here for sure, and I understand to some degree why that is, because I'm old enough to know and remember when that approach was very controversial, even suspect. So he talks about how artists are very much a part of generative music, part of the process, lots of decisions that they have to make. And most importantly, they curate and react to the output of their system. But I think there's an important question here that gets overlooked. What is driving that individual's decisions? What's driving their reactions? Clearly, individual people will gravitate to different moments and different aspects of what they're experiencing. But it turns out there are some basic universal principles that push all humans to certain combinations of sonic patterns. These are not clear and they are by no means definitive. But studies began on this in the 1950s, and they continue to this day, and they're even bleeding into existing fields and creating their own fields, the most noteworthy of which is neuroaesthetics. This is a deep topic, probably best suited for another video, but I think memory and identity are at the foundation of these principles, and without them, all humans are sort of left floating in a sea of undifferentiated sensations. And that's something that can be artistically valid and valuable or desirable. But it's important to realize that, there are limitations to that process. We can't develop anything in that space. Nothing can really connect to anything else. We can't remember any real details about our experience. We can remember the feeling we had, but we don't remember and take away with us the details of the art itself. So in short, it seems to me that it's very difficult in those situations to take anything away that's meaningful to us. As the interview goes on, Brian Eno demonstrates his system called Bloom, and he talks about how he interacts with his custom-built generative software and the library that he has. And they look at the archive and marvel at how big it is.
10,550 tracks equates to a listening time of 44 days, 8 hours, 38 minutes and 28 seconds. Starting now.
So these are fragments and complete works that he's collected, he says, over 40-some years. And I got to say, as a creator myself, I can't imagine how overwhelming that is and what an inefficient way to work. In other words, if you're dependent or looking at that amount of material and you're hoping that some random or rule-based combinations of that material will come together to either create something new or generate music into the future, even long after you're gone. It feels to me that you're going to have to do an awful lot of listening, a lot more than 44 days worth of listening to generate anything really interesting. So I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Throughout the interview, then they put on some random combinations of these fragments, which sound lovely, and they let it be a backdrop as they enjoy the tour of the studio, and that's lovely. But I don't understand really what other use that music may have. Removing individual artistic agency to this extent from the creative process, for sure, it's a valid way to approach things. But I believe it comes at a cost, and it exacts penalties on the artist and on the listener. I think it's important that at the very least, we're all aware of these things and we consider these potential costs very carefully. So some of the things that I think are dangerous about the approach include the fact that you can easily create a homogeneous and algorithmic-based bias, basically a fingerprint of the system that overlays the individual artists creating. That may be, again, desirable, but it's certainly something that we have to be aware of when we're discussing or even trying to understand what this music is. There's a superficial spectacle of technology that comes with this, being just wowed by the tools, because they may start as random generators, they may move to very complex rule-based systems and eventually become trained AI systems. But there's a lot of emphasis and focus on what that technology is as a spectacle. I think there is a diminished level of critical engagement when you're dealing with the art as a creator and as a listener. Again, I just mentioned like when they play this music in the background, it really does work for a nice mood setting, but I think we're not engaged in it in the same way that we might be with, sitting in a concert situation or doing some very focused listening. And then, of course, there are ethical considerations and issues: copyright, identity ownership, and the amplification of bias, which, again, we're talking about aesthetic bias, and that may be desirable, but it also may be an unwanted consequence, something we really have to think a lot about. So again, the interview is lovely, and Brian Eno appears to be someone that I think most people would really enjoy spending time with. This isn't a personal attack or anything. This is all part of a bigger trend that I'm seeing in the musical world today, which ultimately boils down to a willful relinquishing of artistic agency. We're giving up more and more of our creative impulse to musical gear, to software and other studio tools. And this, of course, is mirrored in our daily lives. We are all giving up more and more of ourselves to social algorithmic feeds, other data-driven inputs that are coming at us from the internet, and then, of course, AI. So, I think that this is a bigger topic for future videos. So there it is. That's how I feel. I hope my thoughts spark some interesting discussion in the comments below. Until next time, be well.